Our top story tonight, Vladimir Putin facing an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court for war crimes. For more on that, I want to bring in a key Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee, Congressman Khanna of California. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us. The International Criminal Court is sending a very powerful and historic message with this arrest warrant, but will this have any practical impact in curbing Putin's power?
Well, it should send a message to any other country that you don't want to deal with someone who's committing human rights atrocities. That is why Xi Jinping's announcement that he's going to go meet with Putin is so shocking, coming on the same day as the ICJ is saying there are human rights crimes. And we really need other countries to be paying attention to this.
As you note, the Chinese President Xi Jinping is set to make his first visit to Russia since Putin's invasion next week. How concerned should the U.S. be about President Xi trying to cast himself as a mediator when China hasn't ruled out sending lethal weapons to Russia?
It's very concerning. Look, one of the concerning things, Wolf, is that Xi Jinping and Putin have met almost 40 times. Putin has only met once with the American president at the same time, and Xi Jinping hasn't met with the American president that many times. So there's an emerging alliance. It's why the United States relationship with India is critical, and we can't allow China to play an intermediary role here, given that China has such an alliance with Russia on this issue.
And now a second country, Slovakia, Congressman, is following Poland's move in supplying MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine. Could American F-16s be coming to Ukraine down the road?
I think the president has to keep all his options on the table, and we need to support Ukraine. Just this morning, I read that Ukraine is running out of artillery. They need more weapons. We have to stick with them to make sure that Russia does not advance and take over territory.
And so do you think the U.S. should be providing F-16s to Ukraine?
I think it has to be on the table. I will defer to President Biden's judgment on that.
On a different subject, while I have you, Congressman, I know you represent Silicon Valley out in California, which has been roiled by the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. You blame the Trump-era rollback of regulations, but did California officials and federal regulators drop the ball as well?
They did. Look, the first people I blame is the management of the bank. I mean, they should have their executive compensation taken and stock sales taken. They totally miscalculated risk. The San Francisco Fed, you have to ask where were they? You have to ask where were the California regulators? I mean, they had long-term bonds and short-term deposits. This was accounting 101, and we need to also strengthen the regulations.
So what needs to happen now to prevent this from happening again?
First, banks, large banks that have over $200 billion when they're regional banks, need to face liquidity tests, need to face stress tests, and those tests need to account for a spike in interest rates. Second, we need to have accountability of these bank executives, that if a bank goes under, there needs to be clear clawback of their compensation. Finally, we need to increase the insurance. There's about $8 trillion uninsured, and raise bank premiums to be able to cover that risk.
But politically speaking, do you see Congress has an appetite right now to start taking some of those steps?
The one thing I do think we have an appetite for is helping provide insurance for the $8 trillion that is uninsured. There's $10 trillion that is insured. Those larger accounts, we don't want taxpayers stuck with the bill. So we should increase the premiums on banks to pay for it and tax the large wealthy deposits. I've been in talks with some of my Republican offices, and I think there actually could be bipartisan agreement on raising the FDIC insurance limits, but having a tax on the banks and large account holders to cover it.
That would be significant indeed. Congressman Khanna, thanks so much for joining us.